What is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here once again, and I want to welcome you once again to the Nebula Music Podcast. This is a show where I talk with some of today's most inspiring and influential musicians, anyone that's really doing something really cool in the music industry. I have them on the show with the hopes of exploring their mindset, their creativity, and really get underneath what drives their passion so that it can inspire us to do the same. And today it's somewhat of a different episode because I have an up-and-coming artist joining me here on the Nebula Music Podcast. I have the guys from Lav.ish joining me on this episode, and it's something that I actually just started doing very recently. I just started talking to a lot of artists that I think are really cool, that are on the up and up, that are creating their own paths and starting a career and doing some cool things in the process. And I want to do my part in picking their brain and seeing how it's going for them, seeing how their career is working out. And many of them have actually made some really cool things happen already for themselves. They've made some pretty good strides into making their career successful. And Lav.ish is definitely no exception to that rule. These guys have been incredibly busy. They're from Iowa, but they've done some incredible things already in a short amount of time. Now, just to give you a quick little rundown, they are a group of 5, I believe. It's a mix of rappers and producers and instrumentalists. And this group, not only have they already opened up for very cool artists like Lizzo, they also started their own event / little mini festival that did incredibly well. And it's amazing to me that these guys, this group of friends who want to make music and have a very clear goal in mind and make fantastic music, by the way, are incredible at hustling. I mean, they get things done, and I knew that I had to explore their mind. I had to pick their brain to see how it is that they do it and how it's working out for them, and really just chime in on that passion. So today is definitely a special episode, one that you don't want to miss. It's very fascinating, and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here, and welcome once again to the Nebula Music Podcast. I'm very excited for today's episode because I have yet again another up-and-coming artist, or a group of up-and-coming artists that I think you guys should be aware of. I very recently heard their music, and I instantly fell in love with their hustle, with their style, with their creativity, and I knew that I needed to just pick their brain a little bit, and I'm glad that we got in touch. I'm really excited because I have the band Lav.ish here joining me on the show. How are you guys doing today?
We're good. We're tired.
Good, man. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Everyone's tired. Tell me what, there's a couple of people in the room, so why don't you guys introduce yourselves one by one? Let's start off with Nim.
All right. Well, I'm Nim Kaufman. I do the writing, rapping, and a lot of the visual work for us.
I'm Carl Lane. I'm a vocalist and writer for the group.
Brandon Herman over here. I'm just one of the producers for the group.
I'm Lucas Brandt. I DJ for the group and produce. I like synths and playing music a lot.
Yeah, we have one dude missing. It's Jared Neal, who's a producer and crazy good at the guitar.
Hell yeah, man. Now, is everyone here in the room, are you guys all part of the group, and do you guys perform together, or are part of you guys, like half of you guys do the production and then the half of you guys do the performance?
No, when we perform, we like to do full band and just create that full experience and kind of redo the songs that we record. So we kind of attack that all together as well.
We love to say we bring the living room to the stage. That's how we practice and just bring that on to the stage. So yeah, everybody that's here, including Jared, who is not here, performs on stage.
Yeah.
I love that. So where are you guys from originally? If I had to guess, but I'd rather not guess, but if I had to guess, I think you guys are from Iowa, right?
We're, well, there's 5 of us, so 4 of us are from Des Moines, Iowa, and then Carl is from Chicago. So we all met in college in Iowa City, University of Iowa, and then kind of went from there. So the way it started was it was Carl, Nim, and Brandon. We were all in Iowa City just really fucking around making music, and then like throughout the summers we'd come back to Des Moines, and then Jared and Lucas, who were up at another college,
Iowa State, we don't have to mention that though.
Yeah,
That's
trying not. No.
Well, I love that. I mean, basically, from what I'm gathering, you guys just love to jam out, and then you guys decided to make a band. What I'm curious about is, it seems that you guys are making a pretty good push in music, and you guys have a very interesting style that I'd like to explore. When was it that you guys decided or figured out that, hey, we could actually do this, we could actually make a band? Because as you guys are aware, and many people are aware, playing music can be a hobby, and especially in college, many people just kind of do it, and then once they graduate, they move on to other things. But you guys were friends, found something you like to do, and then decided, hey, this could be a thing. Let's go ahead and pursue it all the way. When did you guys decide to do that? Or was it always there? Like, did you guys join and then realize right away, oh shit, we have something here? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Nim mentioned, we were in college and really just screwing around with music. It's Carl talking. So I grew up on a classical background. Maybe we can get into that a little later, but I've done music pretty much my whole life. High school and whatnot, I that's when I really started picking up vocally and whatnot. But these guys definitely pushed me to be a vocalist and a rapper for the group, if you would. But yeah, I mean, we were, just screwing around, and I knew it's something I always wanted to do. And once the time came, if you guys want to talk about Zach's influence on it.
Yeah. So really what happened was like we've said, we've just been messing around making music, and the songs just kept getting like better and better. And we're the type of people, like, if the song's shit, we're going to say, hey, that's a shitty song. But the songs we kept on liking them. And our friend Zach, who, just a good friend of ours, kind of like gave us that first, like, yo, you guys should like make a project and like take that shit seriously. And then that's kind of just that friendly push, and we were all about that.
It was also him kind of urging us to work more together as a collective, because Nim was doing cinematography and then rapping a little bit on the side. Carl was rapping. Brandon was making beats, and I was making electronic music and indie rock music in Iowa State. So I came from a whole different genre of music before I started making hip hop music with some of my best buddies in Iowa City.
Yeah. So then how comfortable were you specifically transitioning from like electronic beats to hip hop? Because when I'm listening to you guys tell your story real quick, first of all, I'm already fascinated. And second of all, it's always fun getting to talk to the group and understanding how they got together and where their influences come from. Because very rarely do you ever look at a band or a group of musicians as other than a unit. You know what I mean? Like when people think of a rock band or they think of a group, they think of just like the band's name, right? But very often enough, everybody comes from somewhere different, and they all contribute to the band's overall style that we love. So for you guys specifically, right off the bat, immediately I'm already sensing like 3 or 4 different musical genres already to begin with: electronic, classical, hip hop, pop, even a little bit. I'm not even sure if any of you guys specifically were like rock and roll buffs, but when I listen to your music, I will say it's definitely, from my amateurish ear, it definitely sounds like very popish, very hip hop-ish. And so my question to you guys specifically is, how easy is it to blend your genres together? And is there anyone specifically in the group whose genre knowledge or whose musical influence tends to kind of push the whole project forward?
I will argue that Nim, the other vocalist, he is the solid rock to our sound. Everyone's flexible, and Nim himself is flexible, but his creativity vocally and just rapping, and his wit is, honest, in my opinion, maybe I'm biased, but to me it's unmatched. For what he does, that's what I'm saying. It's that rock. As the other vocalist, I push myself to do just different creative things from track to track. I'm not really doing the same stuff from track to track, and that goes. The same thing is said for our production.
Yeah, well, thank you, Carl. But I think really,
I love
so
it.
like usually the steps that like happens is the producers are going crazy, and like I've seen it happen every single day. Like let's just take for example, Brandon will like create a skeleton of a beat, and then Lucas will add some kind of synth or bass or something, and then Jared will add to it, and then me and Carl are in the surroundings, and we like if we catch that vibe and like have a message come to our head, we'll start creating that song.
Yep.
So it really starts with like the producers, and from what I've seen of them, they just all go in together really fucking well. So
yeah, the three producers, we work well together. I mean, Brandon and I, we can pump out like 2 beats in a day easy, and that's without even really trying. I mean, Brandon's a beat machine. And I love making beats too, but Brandon's always making beats, and I love working with Brandon. There's always something fresh, and then I get to go in and do my work on it. I get to go in and put big fat synth bass on it, or whatever it needs, really.
So like, yeah, we had like a mixtape, if you will, even though those really don't exist too much. But we called it Layers, and like the concept of layers was like the fact that all our songs are just simply layers. Like Brandon will add a layer, Lucas adds a layer, Jared adds a layer, then me and Carl add our layers. And that's kind of how it works. We're just like a parfait of music going in.
I love that. And then, you know what? That's interesting because in the music industry, especially with songwriters and the way the industry works, it sounds very much exactly how most major labels and major productions work, where you have your team of songwriters always pitching ideas, then the producers kind of make it solid, and then bigger artists kind of pick and choose which ones they want to go after, which projects they want to be a part of. But for you guys, one thing I am very curious about, because like you said, it usually starts with a beat and it comes out with a good idea, and you guys are just cranking beats left and right, which is awesome. And then you guys, I'm assuming, add the lyrics afterwards, right?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, tweaks and whatnot along the way, in terms of production, but yeah, that's how it is for the most part.
Gotcha. So here's what I'm curious about. In terms of the message then, for the guys who are responsible for producing, which if I'm not mistaken, it's Nim and Carl, right? Do you guys, when you guys start a beat, do you guys is it ever common to have a theme already in mind? Like when you were writing that beat, or I'm sorry, I think it might have been Brandon or Lucas. I can't remember. But for you guys who are responsible for making the beats, do you already have a theme in mind? Like let's say heartbreak, whatever, right? Like do you guys have a breakup in mind and then create a beat and then relay that information to the lyricist of the group and just say, hey, this song, we feel like it could be about heartbreak? Or do you guys just open-endedly create these beats and let the lyricist just write whatever?
Speaking for myself, I just like making vibes. And Nim and Carl they write dope lyrics, and it's always fun to see them go in on shit. Like I'm not much of a lyricist myself, so it is very open-ended in terms of when I present the beat to them, or as Brandon,
No, honestly, like the beats that come out of my computer are just based off of what I've been listening to recently. Like I've been listening to nothing but The Weeknd and The Chronic specifically for like 2 months. So like it was nothing but like slow R&B vibes, and then just like 90 BPM break beats shit going on like that. That's like yeah, it's basically just what I've been listening to. You'll hear that just like come out of the computer.
Yeah, so we usually just get the beats and then or just hear the beats going on in the house, because it's a constant loop going on in this house. So we just kind of just catch on to that. There really isn't like, I feel like definitely most of the time it's me and Carl like maybe chatting up about like if Carl has a lead on something that he wants to talk about, then I'll go off of that if I feel that vibe, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And definitely, I mean, in terms of I guess who does the lyrics physically, like Nim has written things that I have sang the hooks for. Like he'll have an idea in his head, and I'm like, okay, yo, let me put my twist on it. And I mean, obviously, I'm thankful that he is willing to share his lyrics with me to that capacity. But yeah, and honestly, Brandon isn't giving himself enough credit either. He writes awesome lyrics, and he's written some awesome hooks for us that I've been privileged to sing. So yeah, I mean the process is very very there's plenty of cohesion obviously, but there's a lot of sharing involved, if you would.
Yeah, and I love that. Did you guys find that it was very natural for you guys to work together like that? Because in my experience, me being a drummer, I played for many different groups, and I would say for the most part, most groups either, and again, there could be differences, but in my experience, you either find groups where there's one leader, and that leader is pretty much like in charge of everything. Even if that leader doesn't write the lyrics themselves, they're pretty much like in charge of where the music goes. And there's vice versa. There are groups where there's like two leaders or a couple leaders. Very rarely do I find a group. They exist, obviously, but very rarely do I find a group where there's like, for the most part, equal teamwork across the board. And what I'm gathering is that you guys probably have a little bit of that kind of give and take. You know, here's my part, but overall, this is like a team. It's like a soccer team. You know, you guys are working together. What I'm curious about is, was that like that from the very beginning, or did it evolve into that?
I think we all have just that like bits of confidence in ourselves, but also we're aware of what we're not good at. So like I'm very confident with my ability to write a song and write a hook, but I know damn well I can't sing like Carl can sing. So it'd be dumb of me like to not hand that to Carl. So for the sake of making a sick project, and like Brandon will make a beat and he'll be like, Lucas, add some synth to this, because he knows that Lucas is obsessed with synths. So it's kind of just all makes sense that we have like we all each have our individual egos, but it never really like collides in a way that would make a mess or anything like that.
Right.
That makes sense.
We early on and have had plenty conversations since, but we've done our best to drop our egos, if you would, and make sure on every track, on every mixtape, on every album, we're putting our best foot forward. So yeah, I mean,
we'll tell each other if something sucks, which I feel like sometimes there's arguments, but it's never like harsh arguments. It's just facts,
right?
Going towards facts.
I love that. I love that you guys are not. I'm not even going to say thick skin. I think it just, like you said, I think it comes down to confidence and being okay with your own skill level. Most arguments in terms of music, I find that most disagreements and most of the really bad band breakups and whatever that I hear about usually come down to somebody in the group, or just to some degree, they're feeling like the balance doesn't work. And obviously I'm speculating here, but it sounds like you guys have found that very, very naturally, which honestly, in my opinion, it's very, very rare for people as young as you. I mean, you guys are what, like in your 20s, very, very early 20s?
Mid-20s.
Mid-20s. Still early 20s in my book,
yeah.
To be honest with you. Well, honestly, it's something that should be recognized, and I think it's something that it's hard to recognize when you don't have it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's very rare. Here's one thing I'm actually really curious about, because I'm based in the West Coast, and you guys are in Iowa, which is, what would you say? Is that technically Midwest, I think? Or
dead center.
It's right in the middle.
Center.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
If I were to throw a dart at the USA map, it'll fall right on Iowa. It'll be the bullseye. I'm curious about a little bit of the music vibe that is coming out of Iowa right now, because again, me kind of being more on the West Coast, we tend to focus on very specific sides of the industry, as most major cities do. What is the musical vibe in Iowa, or let's say it this way, what are some of the genres that thrive in that area?
Thrive is
it's funny.
thing.
It's interesting because I feel like no matter where you go, you're always going to find some type of genre that, you know, that represents a larger genre, right? But I would say that you know, LA, for example, is like a hub where you kind of hear everything. Same with New York, same with Nashville, and same with Detroit, maybe. And there's a couple other cities. But then you kind of start to get sub genres or sub little music hubs where they focus specifically on other genres. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious, because I don't know a lot of Iowa, I'm genuinely curious what musical genres thrive there, and if your genre, if you consider your genre part of that, or if it's a bit of an outlier, like something different.
It's pretty diverse here, but honestly, there's a pretty decent sized hip hop going around. But I'd say the one that's really thriving, unfortunately, is probably like country. But there is a lot of rock. There's a lot of hip hop. Like I said, there's all sorts of music coming out of Des Moines that I feel like people outside of the Midwest just are unaware of. Because there's a lot of talent in this city.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to there's a music festival in town called 8035. If you go there, and there's a lot of local artists playing all the free stages, you probably will hear, there won't be a repetitive, the genres will be different every person that goes up there. So it'll be like rock, and then it'll be rap, and then it'll be country, and then
they'll throw in jazz.
They'll throw in, literally, there's good jazz band. They'll throw in just like a brass group.
Right, brass ensembles, they've done that.
There's everything here, really. But if we're going to say thrive, the only people that really thrived in Des Moines is Slipknot. So maybe that. Yeah. But no, there's the music coming out of here. And we have the ability to conform too, because we have actual music. We actually will have instruments on stage. So we've been asked to play with some heavy metal bands, and then we'll be fine on stage because they're impressed with the rap, but they're also impressed with the speed of the guitar and just the intensity of the music. So they fuck with us, and then we can also slow it down and play with a more country-ish. But then if it comes the real hip hop, we can pull that shit out too. Yeah. So.
We've broken down our whole set before where we were just using djembes and acoustic guitars and stuff.
Yeah, we did that with So Far. So Far sound. Yeah, we did a So Far show with all of us. We each had a instrument, and me and Carl were rapping. And that was really fun. It was around a campfire.
And getting to sing to the people a little bit, that's always fun.
There's some older people too, and they're rocking with us.
Right.
I love that. Do you guys find that your fans tend to like more hip-hop heavy versions of your songs, or do they also enjoy when you guys kind of get out of your genre as well? Because sometimes, in my experience with different groups, as you succeed or as you start to build the fan base, this is just kind of what happens. A lot of your fans start to like very specific things that you do. I mean, it just happens to everybody. I think it's very rare when everybody loves every single song you make. You know what I mean? I think there's some exceptions to this rule, but I think it's very predominant. I'm curious for you, as you guys are building your repertoire and you're building up your fan base and you're seeing some success already, are you guys starting to see that pattern forming? Are you guys starting to see that your fans are demanding more of a specific type of music? Or do you feel like you guys are still pretty much, free to explore as much as you want? Because obviously you have your genre, your hip hop, and you focus on that. But I'm curious, how you were saying how you slow it down, or you can, fuck with some heavy metal band and do all these things that give you a wide arsenal of musical stuff. I'm curious if you're starting to feel like, hey, maybe we should hone in on one specific way of doing this. You know what I mean? And maybe not. Maybe you haven't. But I'm genuinely curious where you guys feel like you're at.
I think that's our specific way of doing it is changing it up, if that makes sense. We'll throw a curveball pretty much every show we whether that's a cover or a slower song we've done, or we'll be more in your face on stage, or we'll throw Jared just shredding a guitar, which you may not hear in the recorded version of the song, but we were able to work that in on stage. As a group, I think we've seen and have heard the best feedback when we do throw those curveballs in.
Yeah. Another curveball last time we performed was so this is artist, this what would you call him? Dubstep artist. from Sweden who like caught one of our songs.
Shout out, Conus.
Conus is his name.
Shout out to you, Conus.
Yeah. And so it's Homer Simpson's what he was rocking with, and he hit us up asking if we could do like a remix. And we're like, fuck yeah. And so like sometimes on stage we'll just pull out his like hardcore dubstep remix and just go crazy with that. But then on the other hand, we'll have Carl just start doing a cover of Valerie, Amy Winehouse, and people rock with that too. So it's all over the place.
So you guys enjoy that freedom to kind of just throw the curveballs as much as you want then? That's what it sounds like.
That is what our live performances live for.
Yeah.
Interesting. Actually, since I am not where you guys are at, I'm curious, what do your live performances look like a little bit? Because I think you started describing them a little earlier. But since you guys are a group of 5, and one of you plays guitar, one of you is DJing, and the other 2 are singing, if I'm not mistaken, in general, what do your live performances look like? Do you guys plan them out? Do you just feel them out every day? Do you kind of take lessons from previous performances and then jot out what you want to do next? I'm just generally curious how you approach your live performances because as I've learned, it's pretty much 50-50. There's an equal amount of people that really plan everything to the T, and there are people that hate that and prefer to just like, let's see what happens. And both work just fine. But I'm curious for you guys, where do you guys find yourselves?
I've got mad respect for actually, you know what? We kind of have done both. For the most part, we'll start with the set list. We want ebbs and flows of our set. We don't want it just to be all in your face. We don't want it to be obviously completely slowed down and pulled back. So we'll start with that set list and kind of how I mentioned earlier, we'll set up the living room and we'll practice that set like crazy. There's also been times where it's been like, hey, Lucas, hey, we'll start this certain set that we may have written out, but then if it's like the crowd's vibing to some type of vibe, hey, Lucas, yo, let's do this other song next. Which that is, to me, that's super fun because obviously you're playing to the crowd and working on their vibes.
In there sometimes.
Yeah, those audibles are awesome too. So I guess again, for the most part, there is that set list, but we have that audibles that Lucas talks about.
Yeah, and did you guys find it that this is how you guys started performing right off the back, or did you guys approach, I guess, did your way of performing evolve over the years?
I think right off the bat, we had the concept of like wanting those highs and lows because we're all music buffs, so we've all been going to concerts for our whole lives, basically. Like little kids together. So like we understand like the concept of like how a concert should like go, like feel. So we don't right off the bat. We kind of understood that there should be some cohesiveness and also like ups and downs, and not just like straight up rapping to your face the whole time.
I kind of want to add something too. In college, I was listening to this group from Australia called Pendulum, and they're a drum and bass group, but they do full live band performances on the stage. And it was just really inspiring for me. And once I became a part of Lav.ish, it was like I knew exactly what I needed to do because I've been wanting to do something like just like that. And so, yeah, we just bought a PA system and started practicing, and it was all simple from there. Besides making sure the set was dope. Yeah.
I love that. And so here's one thing I'm actually genuinely curious about, because the theme of your story so far, for me at least, as an outsider, but also someone who's become a very recent fan of what you guys are doing, it seems like your story follows this pattern of things that naturally work. Like you guys found yourselves working on music very naturally. You found yourselves performing very naturally. You found yourself pitching ideas to each other very naturally without much conflict, which again, it's very rare. And so it's working very naturally. It's almost as if it was meant to be. What I'm curious about is, when did you guys feel like you were actually succeeding at this? Because again, living in a place like LA or growing up here, you kind of get, and this is me just speaking out of my own personal experience, but you get a little numb to that idea. You know, once you start to succeed, because you see that pattern, you see other people trying to do the same. It isn't until you hit a certain milestone that you, in my opinion, I feel like you let yourself to feel like, oh my God, this is actually working. Until you get there, it's a huge just jumble of different experiences, random performances, random successes here and there. But it's a long road until you feel like, yeah, I'm doing this right. Let's keep going, right? For you guys, since everything seems to be very natural, I'm curious, A, did it take very long for you guys to feel like you were doing it right? And then B, when and how specifically did you figure out that, hey, we have something special here?
I think it was the fact that we made a project and we all really liked it. but I feel like we're all like continuing to like, we're still all very hungry and haven't like felt the need to relax yet. But we're all very anxious and need to go to that next step and really are striving to get to that next step.
I think, my bad, Nim. I think a specific time we felt dope. And do not get me wrong when I say this. I mean, we've been humbled by shows of not many people, and we've had some crazy amount of people at some other shows. But specifically, this was our second show, and there was a local band there called Display Case. Shout out Display Case. They're awesome crew. Rock specifically. But one of the guys, and they've been at it for years. One of the guys was talking to us backstage, and we happened to sell like a crazy amount of tickets for the show. And he asked us, yeah, like how long, like what number concert is this for you guys? And we were like, oh, like this is just our second show.
Damn.
And I specifically remember him saying, oh, and it was hilarious. Oh, fuck you guys.
Totally pissed, but I think it was pretty pissed.
We were shit ton of people there, man. Yeah, shit ton of people there.
So I mean, awesome dude, but yeah, I mean that was fun. That was definitely a point personally. I was like, yo, we really definitely, and to be able obviously to connect with the crowd and see what the hell is going on in an audience when you're performing is incredible. But that was a time where I was like, yeah, like I think we definitely have something going for us.
I love that. What about some of the, because that was your second performance, right? So in your second performance, you guys basically sold more tickets than any other band I really know. There's maybe like 2 examples I can maybe think about that might be the same, but that's pretty dope that you guys can sell that many tickets. I'm curious about, since then, have there been any other performances that you feel like have just been an incredible experience that have proven to you that, oh shoot, yeah, man, this is the real deal. Like we're getting somewhere.
For us was in fact that it was just us and Lizzo was really fun, and it was a huge stage. It was like the whole middle of this campus, University of Iowa's campus, was just filled for homecoming, and that one was like really incredible to be a part of. And something I learned afterwards, like how we got chosen, was like Lizzo's people. So the people in Iowa City sent Lizzo's people like 11 bands to choose from, and then they chose us. So that was even more cool just to hear that fact. And really just sharing the stage with Lizzo was fucking sick.
Yeah, and that was a show, like Nim said, at the University of Iowa. It was for their homecoming show. And we, having graduated just a year and 2 years prior to that moment, we had been to all of the homecoming shows.
Yeah.
To go back and then, damn, just a year later you're performing it. That was a huge moment for us.
I remember like a couple of years before that, I was real drunk at Simple Plan. I was yelling at them to play the Scooby-Doo theme song, and they just wouldn't do it. We switched spots to Simple Plan. It was sick.
You know, it's funny. Not many people will know that reference, but I know what you're talking about. You're talking about that "What's New Scooby Doo" song, right? Yeah. See, that was Simple Plan. That's actually a random fact. Good on you for bringing that up. Well, here's what I'm curious about then. So you got selected by Lizzo's people, which, by the way, congratulations on that opportunity. Quick question: when was that? What year was that you guys opened up for Lizzo?
That was October 2018. So we had been. That's what's crazy too. We I don't know if the guys realize it, but we had been performing together for 3 months, and then we had that show.
Jesus, man, that's impressive. Holy shit. Well, how was the experience? Walk me through a little bit what it was like, because I imagine from where you started and then building your way up to opening for Lizzo, which is a huge, huge leap forward. Walk me through a little bit of your preparation. So let me know if there was anything different that you guys did to prepare, and then what it was like to actually do it on stage. Were there any nerves? Did everything go according to plan? That whole sort of thing. I'm curious.
I remember. I guess I'll say we expected a lot of people, and I remember walking on stage and being like, "Holy shit, there are so many people here!"
Yeah.
Like how many? Like 10,000, 20,000? What do you think?
We wish it was that. So it felt massive because we were on they call it the Pinacrest at the University of Iowa. So they built the stage right in front of like the Capitol building. And they have these barriers, and it is just packed. Nobody can move. This and that. I'd say I don't know.
Oh no, there was 2,000.
There was there had to have been like 5,000.
That's pretty good, man. That's huge.
To come up, and so a lot of people were there to see Lizzo.
She actually went viral at that concert. There's like a video of her going, "Bitch," and then she plays the flute and twerks and whatever. But then
Did her thing.
But then that video went viral.
Right. So leading up to that, I remember. I know I was telling the guys a lot, and it was kind of just our thing to say, like, we're just bringing the living room to the stage. And it felt like that. Obviously, a much bigger living room, but that was our whole kind of setup going into it. And then, bam, the show. So happened crazy fast, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it went perfectly, I think. I think the only mistake was on a rider, we asked for like falafels for some reason.
Holy shit. Bad. Do not eat.
So we like ate like 2
prior to a
falafels
concert.
each before going up there.
That's hilarious. So no horror stories, no like backing tracks cutting out or any of that? Because I feel like every time, maybe not every time, I'm over exaggerating, but I can't tell you how many times I've talked to bands and people that have performed or made it like a leap forward and they play in a big stage for the first time, and the backing tracks just cut out, or I don't know, a part of the drum set breaks or the guitar won't turn on. You know, there's always a small horror story, but you guys don't seem to have it. That's crazy.
I took a bad haircut that day, though. I wasn't too happy with the haircut.
He says that every single time this is brought up. And him hated his haircut, though.
But it was chill.
There's been a couple times where my DJ controller just started like skipping up like between like 1 BPM and the BPM it's supposed to be, and it would just flip back and forth between the two, and like nobody else could notice, but I was looking at my computer just watching the BPM change on its own. I'm like, oh my god, somehow we made it through the show. And it happened like, I think it's happened 2 or 3 times before I actually got a new DJ controller. So yeah, that was pretty scary, but I mean, we made it through.
Yeah. And I'm curious then, so after the performance with Lizzo, after that, you guys had been performing for 3 months, and you guys achieved this very huge milestone of opening up for someone of that notoriety. I'm curious if you guys felt more compelled to work even harder. Did you guys take a quick little break? What were some of the things that you guys started working on immediately after that performance? Because that's a huge thing, and many different people take a milestone like that very differently. I mean, I'll be honest, there's some people that will just want to party like crazy because they're so happy of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just generally curious, you guys as a unit, what happened after that performance with Lizzo? What changed? Did anything change? And is that something that you guys are still doing to this day?
I think right after, like the second after, we got hammered. But then the next day, we were
yes,
back
as you should have. That's great.
We were like back on like, all right, what's our next checkpoint? Like, because like we need something to look forward to, or else we get all like, I don't know, we just need that to move forward. So there's 2 things we wanted to pull off. Was like, there's 2 major music festivals in Des Moines, which is 8035 and 515 Alive, and 515 is the area code. And then so we got booked for that, but there was still like a huge gap between that. And like, just the problem here with Des Moines is that it's so small. Like, it's so easy to check off all the, I don't want to say so easy because we might have got lucky and we're honored to be a part of that stuff, but there's only so much you can do in Des Moines. So like we ourselves took it upon us to like create this thing called Des Moines Culture Con, which took place in the winter because you might not understand out there, but when it comes to winter, everyone just gets depressed and stays inside for so long. It just feels like half the year, just winter. So we decided to like try to create an indoor arts music festival in Des Moines during the winter. And so that was really our next checkpoint. We kind of just like patted ourselves on the back for Lizzo and then just kept going and used that fact to help us bring people to our next event.
And when was that? So you guys threw it in that same winter of 2018, or did you do it in 2019?
Yeah, that was
it was that January, so it was the 18th to 2019.
Right. So a few months after that was when we had a show before that, and we opened for Ritz. Shout out Ritz. Okay.
Strange music.
When I mentioned a humbling show, that kind of was one of those too. That was the first time I think Nim and I were the only ones they allowed on stage. Yeah, because they didn't want the full band. And Lucas, my bad. Lucas DJing.
They don't have the instruments on.
Right, so no instruments. So again, like it was like a humbling experience, but we knew going into that Rich show, hey, like we're kind of telling the promoters, like, you know, we have this show coming up, and this event, Des Moines Culture Con, like we don't want to
push tickets too hard for this show because we're going to jeopardize the next show.
Right. And I mean, you know, there was some doubt we got from some of the higher ups, if you would. But
they were not happy.
They weren't happy with us, but
after they saw Des Moines Culture Con, they were
and what that brought to the city was awesome. So
we sold more drinks at Des Moines Culture Con than New Year's.
But they did at New Year's.
Really? Whoa.
Yeah. So
they were happy with it.
Big money ploy for the for Woolies for sure. I mean, it was awesome. It was cool to work with them too. So
that's pretty cool, man. So you guys basically started this event. Was it mostly for yourselves, or did you find that you were doing it for a larger cause? Because it's okay for either one. Sometimes you're motivated just to do it for your own music and you create something out of that. But I'm genuinely curious. You guys found a new thing to do, and I don't know many artists that go from having a performance or an opening with a major artist to then starting their own event. You know what I mean? Like, that's rare. I've never heard of that happen, or at least it's very rare when I hear that happening. I'm genuinely very curious if you did it for your own band or did you do it for the city, if that makes sense, or a little bit of both.
It was definitely for like, all right, so I think the way we went about it was like thinking to ourselves, all right, what can we do? Oh, there's really not much. Let's create something for the city, but also make sure that we can perform it too. Yeah. So it was mostly for the city because the way it was structured it wasn't just like a stage and a crowd. We literally had like artists of all kinds come and present their work. They had tables all over.
Painters, fashion,
clothes, fashion, photographers were going around, and it was just food vendors, everything. So it was like a lot of other artists got to shine during that event.
We had to work our
asses off because we were broke and couldn't fund anything. So we were running the show, and then at the end of the day, we performed at the show.
We're just exhausted at that point.
Yeah, it was draining. It was fun, so fun. Yeah,
but we just did that 2 years in a row.
Yeah, we just did that 2 years in a row.
Damn, dude. Wait, okay, so walk me through a little bit of what it's like to start an event like that, because like you said, you worked your asses off, and unless you're in event promotion, I think most people understand that making an event isn't easy, but again, it's like making music. Unless you're doing it, you're not really going to know. And you guys went straight from being performers to event promoters. You know what I mean? So I'm curious how that transition was like, and if you can walk me through a little bit about the lessons you learned. How'd you guys even pull it off, that whole shebang? I'm so fucking curious, man.
We just got creative with it. Like, so we just thought of, all right, what can bring a lot of people? A lot of people can bring a lot of people. So we got as many people as we could to get involved. That's why we got a bunch of artists to show off their work and invite their friends. And then we got more musicians to come. So once we got the lineup of artists and tables to fill, we kind of just got the tables. And from then it was all about the marketing. So I designed a logo to make it look legit. And then really we just lit it. Just went around throwing posters literally everywhere, putting up signs, putting up just like any person that we know that works at anywhere. We gave him a poster to put up.
Yeah. I don't want to fail to mention our sponsors as well.
Oh yeah, we had
so many sponsors and so much help from the community and them pushing our stuff as well. We had backing from Red Bull.
Yeah, that was huge.
So many other even local businesses just on our side for this, and that was awesome to see too.
People were down.
Yeah.
People were down with that.
Yeah, we just literally would walk into a business and be like, "Can I talk to the head honcho?" And then once you just dab up the head honcho and tell them your mission, they're mostly down, especially in a town like Des Moines. It's like really built off of just everyone supporting everyone.
That, and they're thriving for the music scene as well.
Yeah. So really it was just us just attacking it all. And we even like did the damn decorations ourselves, like
That's a joke.
just like created posters for that and then put them everywhere. We got like fencing just to make it like look more like street, like main, like hype beastie, if you will. And brick, we just used bricks, like everything cheap that we could think of. We just made it look sick in there, lighting. Yeah, and we had a lot of homies just like drop what they were doing that day and come help us, which is like insane. You know, it was awesome to see.
That's awesome, man. What would you say was the biggest challenge then?
Biggest challenge was, I feel like remaining calm, A.
Yep.
And then B, I think, is just like collecting those sponsors to pull off what our vision is. Like just collecting that money to pull off. Like if we want people to walk in and have a whole new like feel when they walk into that building. So we need the decorations. But wait, we're broke, so we need money. So that was the real hard part. And then once it was like, there came a point where it's like, all right, we literally did everything we could think of. We just need to wait and see what happens.
Right. And then on top of that, you add everything we did for that, and then shit, yeah, we got to perform at the end of it. So definitely staying focused for that too. Like we know we had a show at the end of that. So staying focused, staying energized, if that makes sense, like having enough energy to go out on stage and give the crowd what they want on top of that.
There was a snowstorm that day too, so we're like, oh
wow.
Fuck. But everyone fucking just showed up and
There's a snowstorm both years.
Yeah.
It's like fine until culture comes.
I feel like that benefited us too because everyone's just trapped in their house because it's freezing out.
Yeah.
But then they're like, nah, I gotta get out and be sane again and have a beer.
So would you say that the second time around was a little bit easier, or was it about just as difficult?
I think it was just as difficult. Well, one thing that we did was we chose a bigger venue. So like we wanted to challenge ourselves with that. So we got a way bigger venue. So we needed way more artists and just like, it was much harder. And also like the first round, we were just like, I don't know, just had an idea and we were going after it and then it was succeeded. So the next year, I feel like we were trying to catch that high that we had the first year. So there was a little bit more stress to it, but we pulled it off for sure. Last year's was sick.
Yeah, our second year, I mean, it was probably the amount of space we were dealing with was like 4 times as much space.
Yeah.
How much space are we talking about, if I can ask?
Shit. So it's like I remember
capacity was 2,500 people.
Damn, that's pretty good.
A venue.
Yeah, the size was. I literally remember the blueprint. It's 60 feet wide and 120 feet long from the stage point
that was
on Valley. This year's.
Yeah.
That was fast.
Valley Ballroom.
Yeah, Valley Ballroom.
Shout out.
Which is a legendary space in Des Moines. So that was our concept of like getting that spot, which was expensive too. But just like the fact that we could get the local like concert place that's been here literally since the 40s and has seen like legends like B.B. King and like even modern day legends like I don't know who else, like
If you call him right,
Snoop Dogg was there not too long ago.
Recently, the baby was there.
Anyone you can think of has gone through that.
Yeah, crazy.
I love that, man. Well, here's what I'm curious about then. Are you guys planning to do this again a third year? I imagine so, but things change. But I'm curious for you. Are you guys gonna be making this into a thing, or is there a specific goal for this event? Like, are you guys just trying to build it up to a certain point and then maybe move on from it? Or maybe you haven't decided yet. But I'm generally curious. What are some of the goals you have for this event?
I don't think we've officially decided yet, but something that's been in conversation a lot lately is not lately. It's gonna happen here soon. Is we need to get ourselves out of Des Moines and show where LA. We're thinking about LA heavily, just to try to get us to that next spot. Because really we've squeezed Des Moines of everything it's got. We've hit every stage. We've done every event. So we're trying to just keep on growing. And unfortunately, to make Des Moines, we still want to represent Des Moines, but to make sure that Des Moines grows, I feel like the only way we can do so is leave Des Moines and bring things back to it. So we're unsure of the answer, but we are looking to expand our lives.
There's so much potential.
Yeah, we have too much potential to just sit here in Des Moines for our lives, basically.
I'm really glad that you say that, because I feel like nowadays most people they think about this topic in particular in different ways. Number one, there's those diehard people that believe that you can legitimately make anything you want anywhere because of social media and the internet. But I also find myself talking to people that have a very similar mindset to yours, where and understand that the hustle is real and that you need to work as hard as possible, but that you definitely advocate leaving or going somewhere else to grow and gain a little bit more footing to come back and continue building after that. It seems like you guys are very much in love with that idea. Do you think at all it would be possible to stay in a place like Des Moines and build a massive career without leaving? Is that at all a possibility?
I think it might be possible, but I also believe that live music is so important when it comes to actually showing that you're a musician nowadays. So we're trying to get in people's faces and show them what we can do live. We're very confident with our studio recording for sure, but our live is what we like to do and we want to keep performing. So to do that, we need to you're a drummer, you said, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of Travis Barker and Blink-182 when I was little, but I saw Travis Barker here perform live, and he was on this thing that lifted him up and put him upside down and shit. And after that, I was 10 times more obsessed with just watching Travis Barker. I've listened to Can a Drummer Get Some, his album, and just the fact that I was already his fan, but then I saw him live and I was just blown away. So I feel like we would have that effect on people, and that's what we're trying to do. Yep.
I love that. I absolutely love that. By the way, you mentioned a little earlier, and this is something I definitely am very curious about picking your brain about, and all of you guys too, because it's a bit of an interesting opportunity that I find ourselves in here. You guys are from Des Moines, Iowa, as you guys have been saying, and at the time of recording, we've obviously have gone through some very interesting moments in this nation's history, and it's a moment that I think not any of us in this conversation will ever forget. And from what I understand, over the past couple of days, you guys have been very active in the city scene and what's been going on and the protesting and all of that. This is just me being a curious person from across the country. I live, like I said, in LA. I'm not too aware of what's happening in the Midwest. Can I ask just honestly, what is I guess I could say it this way. What is the environment like right now in your home? Because you were saying earlier how, people, when the winter's over there, they get really depressed when it's cold outside because you can't leave. Well, we just went through a massive fucking winter technically because we've all been stuck indoors because of COVID-19, right? But now obviously there's a lot of political tension and things that are happening. I'm genuinely curious what the vibe is over there. how musicians are dealing with it, that sort of thing. And there's no better person to ask than you guys, it would have seemed so. So if you guys don't mind, can you guys give me a little bit of your opinion on how you feel the environment is like over there? Do you guys agree with the environment, all of that, if that's okay?
Honestly, it's the environment's like extremely, how do I say it? Like extremely cool to see, because literally there's been marches every day, and it's literally the whole city is just coming together. You just like see who supports it, and everyone is there. Like I've seen so many faces that I recognize, and thousands of faces I don't recognize, and like the whole city is literally coming together to march. And it's been happening literally every day since it started. And like from outsider, for a person in LA, you might think Des Moines, you might think small town, but if you see these marches, you do not think small town anymore. Yesterday was the biggest one I've seen, and I've been out every day.
Thousands, man.
Thousands of people just marching, closing the streets down, and just going crazy. And it's the same fucking thing here, that it's all peaceful. We're all just demanding certain things. No one's trying to fucking push a policeman, but the police are literally the first to strike, and it's kind of fucked up. But yesterday was actually a really cool moment. We marched throughout one of the main streets here and ended up at the mayor's front lawn. And there was people that unfortunately do not know their names because they deserve a shout out, but they were demanding, they had 4 things that they were demanding. They wanted, Iowa was the only state that you can like have a felony and not vote after you serve time.
Right. So if you have a felony, you can't vote. You're voting right.
So
even after you serve justice, you can't vote, right? It's like an indefinite thing for the rest of your life, right?
Ridiculous. So they marched up to the mayor's little house and demanded him to change that, demanded him to take away the curfew, demanded him to tell the cops that were there waiting for us to get the fuck out of there because we're being peaceful, and just demanded a few other things. But it's really cool to see. There's been like 3 nights or so when it's gotten violent, like where people are like breaking and looting and shit like that. But since then, it's been pretty calm. Just graffiti everywhere, but there's no looting and stores down. What I see in LA is fucking insane.
It's crazy, yeah. And right, that's what we see from here, man. If I can add to that, then mention that one of those requests, if you would, was to lift the curfew that has been placed upon the citizens of Des Moines. Mayor came out and he addressed all these things. And today we found out that the curfew was lifted.
Yeah.
So I mean, that, honestly,
and 30 minutes before, I forgot to even bring it up, they did change the bill. They passed the bill to let felons vote.
They already changed it.
Yeah, they literally passed it.
Holy shit!
So I mean, Des Moines is progressive, man. And we want to see that for other cities. If I can say anything about that, it's incredibly powerful. I'll say to be at these events. You see the people that care about and truly care about the people, and injustice.
Yeah, there's people passing around pizza yesterday. It's water bottles. Their families were coming out and just it was like giving everything they got, and it was sick to see. But the other part, there are those fuckers that are just never gonna change their mindset. So there was like bikers coming and revving their engines and running away and shit like that. But it hasn't gone violent, but
right. But if you're a listener out there, honestly, and you're on the fence of even going to a protest or speaking up, I highly encourage you to speak up. Your voices, obviously, with the numbers that you have the capacity of creating, your voices will be heard. Yeah. You can't stop. Keep your foot on the pedal, but I mean, I'm thankful that Des Moines is and has been as progressive as we have been.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And can I say it's something? It's a breath of fresh air to know that what you guys are doing, I mean, what the nation is doing, it's actually causing quite a bit of change, which is amazing, especially someone. I'm a local from LA, and I was born in South Central and lived in South Central a long time. Many people, when they meet me, they don't even realize that. They get surprised when they find out that I grew up very near Compton, closer to Watts technically, but most people don't really know where Watts is. They know where Compton is though. And so the idea being is, it's so interesting, and I'm going to explain to you guys from my perspective without taking too much time, but I find this conversation very, very fascinating, especially right now. When you grow up in the areas that I grew up and you meet a lot of people, one of the things you start learning from a very early age, you kind of adapt this idea that things won't ever change. And you find that almost everywhere, especially in low-income areas with a lot of problems. Even though nobody is saying it, you just grow up knowing it, and I don't even know how you learn it. I don't know who tells you. It could just be out of circumstance. You learn from experience and from just living there that things don't change, so you learn to survive. That's one of the things that you find, especially I find this from a lot of outsiders when they go there for the first time. One of the things they're impressed by is this mentality of just survival. You kind of just do what you got to do to survive. And some people make bad choices out of that, but most people make good choices. But the idea is that many people don't believe that progress can be made. You just have to live through it, And so when I hear stories from you guys that a city in Iowa in the Midwest is progressive enough where they can have thousands march and actually have their mayor change the law the next day because of what the people are demanding. I mean, that's just beautiful when you really think about it like that. And I'm curious then, this brings me to this question. When you guys, before all this happened, did you actually feel like your voices could be heard? Did you ever feel like the efforts that artists and other people, creative people, because I feel like right now a lot of creative people are really taking a stand to this injustice. Did you feel like your voices would be heard before any of this happened? Was that something that you genuinely believed in, or did you not believe in it and now you've been proven wrong?
Yeah. I feel like as artists, yes, as an artist, you connect differently with people. You connect with music. Some people live for music, man, and live for listening to music. It's crazy. For example, some lyrics that I've written and not necessarily thrown away, but you forgot, hey, that's what you said in a song. I had a very good friend of mine I play football with. He called me specifically to tell me, man, what you wrote on this track resonated with me so incredibly much, and it moved me. So this situation, yes, we can connect differently, and we can connect with people, and we do have that platform to do so. We're blessed to have it, but I mean, I think it's important that we do speak out on these issues.
Yeah. And do you feel as creative people, as artists, and hopefully other people that are listening to the show, what would be, in your opinion, and just out of people from a different area that I'm not used to, I love learning different ideas. What do you think are some of the things that can be done at the moment when it comes to not even just this injustice, but going forward? Because again, we're living through a historic moment. Nothing will ever be the same after this time period is over. Going forward as an artist, what do you guys think are some of the things that creative people should be doing on the daily basis, or maybe not daily basis, but quite often, to help promote justice? I guess that's the simplest way I can put it. Obviously, I'm being broad, but I think it's a necessary question. What is something as creative people, what can we be doing, in your opinion, to continue promoting this aura of change?
Maybe for rappers, let's say, just have actual message. Don't drop, keep the money hose and clothes for a fun time occasionally here and there. If that's all you're talking about, then that's not really helping anything. If you have a message to rap about it. And if you're, let's say, a graphic designer, then say what you feel. My friend Malik Tiao yesterday grabbed a megaphone from this guy and just went on a really powerful rant. And not a rant, just let out
speech,
all
man.
His feelings.
And he
in
talked
front of
about
thousands of people, and he himself was he was talking about how he's always held in these thoughts because he's lived mostly in a majority white community, and he's seen that he lived in suburbia, but he really didn't. like he isn't spoiled at all. He like has had hardship his whole life, and like that was his time to like pour out his feelings, saying that like he doesn't want to. He was literally preaching to the crowd to like not hold in what you're thinking, like just say what you're thinking and don't hold back anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a important thing, just to literally say what the fuck you're thinking, and if it's negative, then maybe write it down and keep it to your damn self. But even then, I don't know. Just I feel like there's a lot of artists going around now that are just like jumping on this hype beast bandwagon of just like talking about a watch that they bought for more than their car and shit like that, even if it didn't happen. There's a lot of that going on. So I feel like if there's actual messages behind what you're saying, then that would be a step forward. Because at the end of the day, like, the biggest artist I can think of is like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Tupac. Those people obviously had messages, and that's why they're where they are. And they definitely have led a bunch of people and changed minds.
I love that. And do you guys feel like for a lot of the music that you guys are making, up and coming music, especially the new album that you guys have out, is this something that you feel like your music has always done, or is it something that you're going to be trying to do more of in terms of spreading a message or having like a point? Because personally, I feel like having different approaches to music is fine. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, I think like you were saying, there's time to have fun and talk about dancing and whatnot. There's moments where it's good to talk about a message. And for you and you guys all specifically, I'm generally curious about if you guys feel like you guys are saying everything you want to say, or if maybe after the events that have occurred, if you guys will be doing something different. I'm not saying changing everything, but maybe trying out some new things to maybe talk about specific things. And it's okay whichever way you're approaching. I honestly have no vendetta or any opinion towards how people do their art. But to me, my curiosity is just piqued because this is literally a game-changing moment in life. Nobody's going to live the same way after this. And so I'm curious for your artistry. Is it going to change, or is it going to stay the same regardless, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, as long as we have been creating music, we've always wanted messages behind our music. That's not saying we don't have the fun and some songs and some arrogant songs, which I think is fine. There's a place and a time. But especially with this album, we wanted to send a message. We wanted to really just talk about how we were feeling with track to track, and that's what we did.
I think I would necessarily say it's like a message, but it's just how we're feeling, like topic of discussion, if you will. Just like a lot of the songs on this last album we did,
which is Lost and Found, right? What was the name of the album?
Yeah, Lost and Found. Yeah, you got it. And a lot of those songs, I feel like, are touching on the subject of like being in your early 20s and not knowing what the fuck is the next step, and like
we talk about there's points where we talk about depression within the album. I mean there's love interest, if that makes sense, within the album as well. So a lot of the music we write is based on how we are feeling at the time. This Lost and Found was recorded and released prior to the events and all of the marching and the protesting going on. I think there are some relevant songs in there for this, but moving forward, I think you will hear references to what's going on as we record and release new music.
I love that. And so as we're kind of beginning to wrap things up a little bit, I really do appreciate your honesty and always and allowing me to kind of have a sneak peek of what's happening in other areas, especially in your area. And I'm happy to hear that change is actually happening. I think everyone around us is pleasantly surprised that change is happening. I'm generally curious for Lost and Found. You're starting to mention some of the themes. So I'm generally curious what the theme was behind the album, if there even was a theme, going into recording this latest studio album that you have. What were some of the themes that you wanted to try and convey when you were making it? And after, we're done with the quarantine and stuff, are there any plans to promote this album with live performances and all that?
Oh, definitely will perform live. But yeah, our mission really for this album was like cohesiveness, like song to song, and just keeping that general, I don't know, the vibe, but there are like switches and vibes for sure. But just really being cohesive and like actually tapping into how we're feeling, trying to relax on the arrogantness and like
take a step back and, like we said earlier, just convey our feelings and what we're feeling.
And production wise, the music itself like wanted to evolve too, and like just make it a sharper sound. And
shout out Mike Bozzi for the master as well.
Mike Bozzi, Grammy winner.
Hell yeah, Mike Bozzi. Mastering is an art form in itself, man. You always got to give a thumbs up to the producers, the masters. I mean, the mastering engineers, because it's a art form that doesn't get enough attention. You know what I mean? It's a symbiotic relationship between artists and the producers and mixers. And so shout out to you, Mike. You did an excellent job with this album. What is your favorite song out of this album? Like if you had to tell somebody and recommend a track from this album so that someone could check it out and ease into it, what would be the one track that you would recommend?
I'm gonna have to not play by the rules on this one and give you probably two tracks.
Go for it.
I would say in terms of the concept of the album, probably None of Your Concern. Definitely that one. Overall sound, I would say check out You Are. That's definitely one of our favorites and one that we have found we have to do when we perform now. So.
Hell yeah, man. I'm going to make sure to play a snippet of both right here.
A handful that I trust, love only a few. Due to the past, I got some pessimistic views, so I'm blunt to your face like a blunt. I feel like I like you the way you are. I feel like I like you the way you are.
All right, guys. Well, I loved everything you guys had to say about your music. And to close things out, I know we've said everything you needed to say. I've learned so much about your town, about how you got started, the cool things you guys are doing. I mean, you guys are a hybrid. You guys are a band and promoters. Like, it's insane that you guys are able to do that equally well. I'm genuinely curious for artists out there that are, no matter where they are, whether they're in the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, whatever, but I guarantee you there are going to be many up-and-coming artists who are inspired by your story at what you guys are doing to succeed. What is some advice you can give them if you had to sum up everything that has occurred in your life, the things that you guys have done right? What would you recommend artists to keep in mind and to be doing in order to succeed and take their career to the next level?
I think number one, no plan B, man. We as humans will naturally fall back on what's easiest for us. It's just a natural thing that humans do. And we don't have a plan B. This is what we want to do. This is what we've grown up wanting to do. And we're making a push for it. So just honestly, just get out there, find what works best for you, but go for it.
I absolutely love that. Anybody else? Anybody else got something? It's all good. Because I love that. That was a great way to end it. But if anyone else wants to chime in, you're more than welcome to.
That was it.
All right. Sick. Well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And I definitely look forward to watching your career with a very close eye because you guys are going to go very far.
Thank you so much, man. This was awesome. We really appreciate you doing this.
Hope to meet you when we're out there.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the guys from Lav.ish. I know that I definitely did, and I say this at the end of every episode, and the reason I say it is because I think it's important. I'm always learning. I love doing this show, and I love doing this podcast, and I have had the honor of talking to amazing musicians, some notable, some established, some up and coming like Lav.ish. But the one thing that I get out of doing these interviews is I always learn something new. And it's one of the things that I love sharing most. I love sharing conversations and things that inspire others to really just do the best that they can at what they're doing. And Lav.ish, to me, these guys are a prime example of what can be done when you have an idea, you have a passion, and maybe you don't necessarily know how to do it, but you just know where you want to be and you go for it. I mean, these guys are promoters and they're artists at the same time. It's crazy. They're the ultimate hybrid of what you can do when you want to get something done in the industry. And that's one of the things that inspired me after this conversation is I genuinely felt like I wanted to start my own event or like I wanted to explore that concept. And it made me think about other ideas that I had, like what else could I do and things of that nature. And I want to encourage you to use this conversation to dive in deep into what you want. Whatever that may be, there's a way to get it done. It may not be the most conventional way. It may not even be the way that you planned it. But as long as you're willing to put in that work and you're willing to think outside the box and just go for it, just like the guys from Lav.ish, you're going to get it done and you're going to get there quicker and in a much more spectacular way than you could ever imagine. So thanks again to the guys from Lav.ish for joining me on the show. I definitely enjoy the conversation. And I want to encourage you to stay tuned in because I have tons of great interviews coming. This is something I'm going to be doing more now. It used to be that I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 interviews a month. Now I'm going to be upping that to maybe closer to 8 or 9. And so there's a lot of guests coming on the show. And so I can't wait to start putting these out there. And so we're beginning this new, I guess you can say, new way of doing the show, of just getting a lot of interviews out there, and I want to do my part to inspire you. So definitely stay tuned because I have tons of great content coming your way.